So recently I made this video on this Matrix Mini I Pro 3. There's one problem with that streamer. You need to use an Apple device to access it. And like some of you, I was like, what the hell? I'm paying $700-800 for the streamer and I can't use my Android phone to access it? You know, today, man, we want everything under the sun for $800. So I reached out to Matrix and I asked them, hey, why can't I use my Android phone to stream to this Matrix Mini I Pro 3? And they told me, well, the CPU on it is not strong enough. If you want to, we have the Matrix Element series. So I'm like, oh, okay. But the Matrix Element series is a little bit more expensive. Now they have the Element I, M, and X. I asked for the I because I'm like, okay, 1,002 for streamer. I think that's really reasonable. And let's check out the entry-level model first before I look at the more expensive one. So today we are going to talk about the Matrix Element I. Before we start, a big thank you to Apos, or is it Apos, Audio Store. You know, I should ask them how to pronounce the name one day, for sending me this unit. Now, if you're planning to buy this unit after this video, go check them out because they do have a 30-day after sales price guarantee. So if you buy it, you know, they guarantee it's the lowest price, and if you find it somewhere else, even after you bought it, they still will price match it. And they'll extend the warranty by an extra year. All right, so I'm just going to jump straight into how it sounds. And there's a logical reason why I'm doing this, okay? Because when I talk about the specs, I tie it into where it can improve on. Now, regarding how it sounds, I'm not going to spend too much time because what I noticed, okay, at this point, after going through so many Chinese stacks, is that they tend to go towards the same direction, all right? Meaning that it's all about clarity, transparency, detail, very clear, sharp. You got bass that's strong, decent timing, okay soundstage. It's not about warmth. That's the one thing I notice about these Chinese stack. Especially very apparent when I start comparing to, let's say, a DAC like Meitner. There's a lot of warmth in the mid-range, for example, with the Meitner. So my advice is this. Given the fact that this is a quote-unquote a fairly neutral sounding amp, I will even go as far as saying probably on the cooler side of neutral, the cool side of neutral. If your system is slightly tilted up on the top end, you might run into a problem where it sounds a bit thin, okay? I'm not saying like specifically to this Matrix stack. I noticed that with the OWN S8, the Guster X26, as well as well, this Matrix, the higher end Chinese stack, I noticed it's a bit more neutral compared to the more entry level ones, okay? So it was very apparent to me when I paired with the Cayin CS845 tube integrated amp. Now in that review, I said that the top end is slightly tilted up with stock tubes. So as a result, when I listen to certain tracks, I noticed, yeah, it's on the thinner side. Now, when I pair it with something else, like a Mcintosh MAC6700, it's perfectly fine. So my advice is that you have to be aware what kind of system you have. If it's on the forward side of neutral, a little bit bright, this might not be a good match. Now, having said that, the Matrix, I think within the few, like the higher end Chinese stack, seems to be a little bit warmer sounding. So this one, system matching is very important. So I'm not going to go into stuff like stereo imaging, soundstage, and so forth. It's fine. It's good. All right. I can say that it is probably a bit better than the Topping D90. I say this is because when I lent it to Mr. Kanta, and as usual, when he gets something nice from me, he wants to buy it. He's like, Thomas, man, I want this one because I noticed that the bass is stronger than the Topping D90 and a few other things. I don't remember what he told me, but I'll put it in the comment section when I find out, but he felt that in terms of sound quality, it is superior than the Topping D90, for example. So, but that's a different group of DAC. Those are like the $700 DAC. This one is like the 1,000-ish DAC. So yeah, there was definitely a difference. I'll come back to the sound a bit later on because I got a story to tell, as usual. All right, so let's move on to the specs. I'm just going to put it up here on screen, and I'm going to compare it to the Matrix Mini iPro 3. Now keep in mind that the Mini iPro 3 is a newer streamer. All right, the only downside is that you need an Apple device to access it. The difference in sound, though, I'll say this. The Matrix Mini iPro 3 has a smoother mid-range. It has that roll off in the mid-range that makes it sound very smooth, while the Element I has more texture in the mid-range. So by looking at the specs of both units, and this is where I'm going to transition into the negative first and then the positive, okay? You'll notice that there's no Bluetooth with this unit, number one. It doesn't have a beautiful LCD screen. It doesn't have RCA input, so you can't use it as a preamp. And finally, it does not support MQA. Now, is this a deal breaker for some of you? Perhaps. But if you have Wi-Fi at your home, then Bluetooth is not really an issue. If you don't use MQA, not really an issue. If you plan to use it as a DAC and not as a preamp, once again, not an issue. But please go over the specs to make sure that it meets everything that you're looking for. The second thing, as I mentioned before, I wish it had a little bit more warmth to it. All right, so let's move on to the positive, and there are quite a few. I think the one that stands out the most for me, besides the fact that you can stream to it with your Android phone or your Windows computer, is the fact that it has a USB port. I think it has two. So what you can do is to put all the music that you've ripped from your CD, put it on a USB stick, plug it in, and then you can just listen to it by accessing it through your phone. Yes, you do have to install the Matrix app for it, but it's actually very simple and intuitive. So for those of you who are looking for a solution like just everything on a USB stick, this is one solution. You don't need a computer, just a phone. Of course, the second thing is the network. You can access it through your network. It supports DLNA. I was able to see it with JRiver, and so the good part is that if I want to keep this Matrix, I don't need to keep the computer in the same room now. I can keep it in a different room, because right now I need to use USB. But with the network, I can actually put it in a different room. Now, just like all the modern DACs, it has all the major inputs. So that's expected, I guess, these days. Now, what I like, what Matrix did, is that they publish the graph for the filters used in this DAC. So depending on which filter you choose, you can look at the graph and see, okay, so this is the kind of sound that I'm expecting it to change. Here, I'll put it up on screen. Now, I wish that other companies would do the same so that I don't have to start guessing with filter 1, what is it, filter 2, what does it do? It actually shows you all on this graph. You can also use this unit as a Roon endpoint, and the build quality is actually pretty decent. The remote, for example, instead of like plastic, the front part is actually metal and the back is plastic. The price, $1,150, around there. It's reasonably priced. The performance is exceptional. And the reason why I say this is because this is the part where I'll tell you a story. Now, the reason why I want to tell you a story is because I can tell you how it sounds, and it doesn't really mean much for me. I can tell you it's very detailed, expressive, it's, the same usual jargon. But you know what? A $100 DAC can do it these days. Transparent, sure, $100 DACs can do it. Now, among my buddies, okay, I have a group that usually the system is around 20, 30, 40K, around there. Now, they don't usually play with entry-level gear, meaning that sub $1,000 gear, because they've been through that journey already. They've tried it before, and they know you get what you pay for. Among those audio buddy, my latest victim, actually I call him my latest tester, is Mr. Quad. You see, if you've seen the video on the Matrix Mini iPro 3, you know that at that time, I asked Mr. Jazz to help me test that DAC. He was so impressed with it that he bought it, okay? His system is also in $30,000, $40,000, around there, MSRP. So Mr. Quad own streamer is about $4,000, 3-4, around there, okay? And he has never played with these Chinese DAC, the 800 to 1,000, never. But, he's open to helping me test it. And what I don't show is that whenever he tests for gear for me now, like for example preamps, like the Doge 7, Doge 8, he'll put it on an Excel sheet and he'll start breaking everything down. Now I'm just going to put it on screen here, but I won't show you the whole Excel file comparing with all the other DACs that we try, because being somebody with a degree in statistics, the way I look at data is very specific. Okay, if I show you the whole Excel file, I need to explain to you the data, else it can easily be misunderstood. So I'm just going to show you a quick snapshot, unfortunately it's in French, between his reference DAC versus this matrix element I. And he told me, Thomas, man, incredible. This DAC in my system, in his system, he has the Mcintosh MAC6700, like mine, the Quad 2905, and then he has his subwoofer. As you can see, his room is fully treated. He said that he cannot tell much difference between this element I versus his own reference streamer, which is around $3,000–4,000. So he told me, Thomas, you know, I'm actually a bit depressed about it. Man, these streamer from Asia, man, like for $1,000-something bucks, it can actually rival my own streamer. And I'm like, yeah, that's how it is today. All right, so let's wrap it up at this point. Now, I bet some of you are like, Thomas, man, same story again. You get a Chinese DAC, you bring it to your friend's place who have a high-end system, they're blown away by it, and the end. Well, you know what? It's a true story. This is the first time Mr. Quad got a chance to try, and this is his real experience. He was depressed by it. And when I lent it to him, I didn't tell him the price. I asked him, don't research on it, plug in your system, and just listen, and just grade it for me. And yeah, it is what it is, right? Now, having said that, I just want to summarize it, because I have the UN S8 coming also. And I noticed that all these DAC from Asia, they're always going for maximum clarity, transparency. It's just that the matrix, I find that the mid-range is a bit smoother compared to the other DACs I've tried. This is where it stands out. I think the Element I is probably one of my favorite Chinese DAC. When I pair it with a system, well, because I have so many systems in my place, on the warmer side or the neutral side, it sounds fantastic. In fact, yeah, its sound signature is more to my taste. The only DAC that I can say decisively beat it was the Meitner DAC. And the Meitner DAC is about $7,000. The Meitner DAC's mid-range is warmer. That is to die for. But I can't deny the fact that I am curious though. What if I had the Element X, like the top of the line? How close would that one be to the Meitner DAC? Yeah, who knows? Maybe one day I'll get a chance to try it. So for those of you who are looking for a streamer, yeah, the Matrix is definitely a solution for you. And go check out Appos Audio Store should you decide to purchase one. All right, I'll see you next time.